Good morning. Let's get started. Did you miss me? The one person out there who watches me? Well, that's going to change. Not missing me, but there's only one of you out there, or two sometimes, or occasionally a half dozen. For a minute there was dozens, and I do have 63 subscribers. Yay, yay. I've been off the air for a few days because, well, let's see. Thursday, Friday, 2 days, only 2 days. We had a power outage, which gave me a couple of days to think about the meaning of energy and us needing to get off of fossil fuels and I've been one of the things I want to spend our money on and spend our thought and focus on is mechanicals in the house, like the climate control and the water delivery systems and the power systems and all of that, to make sure that if the winds blow or if the power goes out, I still have power and water and internet and warmth or cool, or my food supply is still secure. Da 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 da. So I just thought it was really interesting. Our power went out, and it makes me think more and more about what human beings, how we should be doing this. We shouldn't be doing this way. But because we are doing it this way, if we decided to make a massive change quickly because it was a better idea, because it would be a good idea, we couldn't do it because we put everybody in the energy sector out of a way to, people have earned their certificates and they've got their way that they're doing it. They are electricians. We need electricians. But you know what? All of the people that were out cleaning up all the trees urgently this very second, because we have to do that to get the power back on, because everybody's power needs to be fed into their homes, and their homes need to be wired in a particular way, or you don't get power. That isn't the way to do things. And we're gonna come up against the realization that we need to quit doing it this way. But what do we do with all the people working in the energy sector now the way it is? Well, what you do is you redirect them. You say, everybody in the energy sector, pivot, look this way, and let's quickly get all of us up in this way. Productivity goes up, the group's ability to feed the whole group, or to supply the whole group, is easier. This will work, people. We just have to shift our mindset. Our mindset has to shift, and it has to just do it easily and work on yourself. Don't worry about. So the mindset of us needs to shift, and it's going to shift from us owning things individually to custodialship and recognition of we're all in this together, and the win-win position and all of that vibrational reality. Our inner beings practically being the same inner being. The difference only in the focus of attention from your point of view. Other than that, our inner beings are all the same inner being. But mine is focused on me and yours is focused on you, but all of the rest of it is the same. Do you know what I mean? There is a win-win position here. But you don't have to focus on the win-win position. You focus on your own win. Just make sure that the equation that you work with recognizes that everybody else needs to win too. But don't cut yourself out of the win. Your calculations have to be a win for you, or it's not a win. It's the win-win. Not the win for the big and the lose for me. It's the win-win, the win for all of us. So, what am I talking about? source energy. We do not need to be plugging into fossil fuels. We don't need fossil fuels. We don't need an energy grid. There's kind of a grid already in place. And this grid is the matrix, the quantum field. It's and to understand it is to understand ourselves. And to understand its power is to understand how to power our civilization. Now, I was saying there was going to be news on the pod. First of all, what's going to happen is there's going to be a whole bunch of things that are going to transform. They were going to do it on Thursday. I was going to have my training session on Thursday, but it didn't happen because early in the wee hours of Thursday morning, right around 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, we lost our power. We'd kept losing it all night long. It'd lose and then bounce right back, and lose and then bounce right back. And I had to keep turning on my fan and turning off the LED light in the mini flow above my head because it was lighting up the room. I did it like 4 times. It clicked off. Then we went back to sleep, and I did it again, and then I did it again. Finally, at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm not sure exactly when, the whole thing went black. And we didn't get power back for over 40 hours later. It was like 42, 43, something like that, hours. So, anyway, the training session didn't happen because it was going to happen here at the house. I need to learn how to clip all of this information that I do, turn it into a podcast. It's going to be a live stream. It's not a live stream right at this moment, but Monday morning, look for that. Live stream first, then posted to the YouTube channel, the podcast. It's going to have some better information through it. All of the videos that I keep telling you to go watch, I'm going to be able to cut them into my show, or the links to them, so that as I mention a particular one of my link videos, I can post a link to it right there. So if you want to stop my video and go watch that for a minute, perfectly welcome to. I appreciate it. What else? It will begin to be posted where you find your podcasts. And you'll be able to find it by just putting in the words, "Who am I?" And you'll get to my podcast. That's going to be coming up hopefully by Monday, if nothing interrupts the next training session. It's probably just as well my teacher came down with dreadful illness again. So, in any case, I'm going to pause this really quick. I wonder what happens when I'm on a live stream. If I pause, I guess what I do is I play something else in the background for just a minute. I have to can something to do that, don't I? Oh, so much to think about. I was going to go do something, and I can't remember what it was. So I will stay right here with you until it comes back and I remember. Oh, yeah, I was going to go do something. I was going to go to another page somewhere on the internet and look at something, and I can't remember what it was. So, not specifically. So, what's going to happen? Oh, it had something to do with the information I was sharing about the podcasting and such. Anyway, look for it wherever you get your podcasts. You're just going to be able to type into the search engine, "Who am I?" and my podcast will come up. Now, if somebody else has a podcast called "Who Am I?", then you may have to choose. And I'll let you know how to tell which one's mine. I am Who Am I in the field, and my whole bent is to help us understand who we are so that we become more peaceful, more integrated, more you know what, we had a terrible election last week, and you know what? I am afraid of our fearful reaction of it now more than I am afraid of the consequences of the election we just had. It's both. It is absolutely both. As you turn and gaze at something that you think might be off, your fear about it, your anger about it, your actions from that position although you may not be wrong about the situation, the emotional response is actually inappropriate when you understand who you are and who your positive and negative self is and what your positive and negative emotions are. So it's inappropriate for me to behave in anger or fear about it from any position. And when I do that, I become the problem. And yet I'm pointing at the guy over there who's obviously the problem. And yet the darkness that I hit, that particular angle of focus, you know what we should have done with him the first time? We did not handle this man correctly. He was never, ever Hitler. He was a buffoon, a clown, whatever, but there's only one thing he's simple in a way and very powerful in another way. The focus of his attention and his emotional configuration, you might say, what do you mean he's powerful? But he is powerful. In his single-mindedness, in his simpleness, he is... And what do I mean by all of this? What did he want? He did not care about America being the master race of the world. He had no interest in conquering the world. He had no interest in Trumpifying the world. That wasn't that. A Trumpifying maybe only just in a, look at me, aren't I beautiful, aren't I wonderful, doesn't everybody... What the man wanted and has always wanted, and I think it's the only thing he's ever wanted, is to be loved. He wants to be loved. And we could have just loved him. We could have loved him. We could have been kind to him. We could have helped kind of gently push and guide and nudge and teach and pull him into our own bosom. But instead, we made fun of him. We oh my gosh. We compared him to Hitler. And the reason that we did is because he's riding a kind of vibrational wave that reminds us of something. It reminds us of Hitler a bit because there's an authoritarian streak to it. Well, it certainly does now. But at the time, we just made fun of him. And we made fun of how he talked. We made fun of his style. And the rest of America saw themselves reflected in this man and in our derision of him. And they polarized against us. And the whole thing was completely unnecessary because we meant well, they meant well, he meant well. Now you can point at all kinds of things that you could get after him for, as you could get after all of us for so many things. Woke culture is a problem. It is. Whatever the heck it is. I don't even know what it is, and I know it's a problem. But you don't push against it. Woking is sort of pushing against all the things that it imagines is not woke. I don't even know what woke culture is. But anything that pokes fun at others for not being as up to speed, it's got the wrong spirit. Even though the object of the exercise is to get us all up to speed, you don't poke fun at those who aren't up to speed. And we spiritually treated this man incorrectly. Now you may say, yeah, but in this case, he really is, he's now holding, he is a criminal, he doesn't respect this and that and the other. Now he's all friends with look at the reality of actually where the problem is. And I'm not going to argue with any of that because you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But we could have diffused this way early on had we handled him completely different. We could have love could have managed this man. But instead, we did not love him, and he would have loved us back. All he ever wanted was to be adored. You know, he's so simple. He really is. Most men are. I do not mean to even be putting him down. But love really is the answer. And not love really is the problem. And so, how do we begin our little narrative? Because I want to, on the one hand, deeply assure you that I understand what reality is. I know what's going on in the field of reality. I know, I mean, and I understand how the energies move. And I am a student of history. Absolutely, I have my favorite points in history: World War II, the Civil War, the American project, you know, in general. I read all of the John Jakes bicentennial series and more and more and more. He wrote a whole bunch of stuff, North and South, and then I read so many books, fictional period pieces set during the time of the Civil War. Ones that glorified the South, ones that recognized the points of the North, all from all kinds of different directions. I had other favorite historical times besides American ones. I studied English history from my own perspective, from my own what I found interesting. Frank Yerby wrote lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of books. Read lots of those. Now, Philippa Gregory wrote a bunch of big ones about Henry VIII and Mary Queen of Scots, and that whole the war, the end of the War of the Roses and beginning of the rise of the Tudors, all the way to through Elizabeth and into King James the First of England, James the Sixth of Scotland, unless it was the fifth. I should know that. It's the last James was Mary's father. But anyway, neither here nor there. It's just, let me reassure you, I am a student of history. I am a student of human psychology, and now I am a student of law of attraction, and I am a student of unified physics. And our understanding of the true nature of ourselves and the matrix that we dance in is going to free us from the constraints that have held us back. And on the one hand, that's marvelous, magnificent, fantastic, yay us. And on the other hand, we're going to have to watch it because we need to know ourselves. Get ready for no fences. Well, or defenses not holding us back. Defenses are still going to be there. And in a lot of cases, we're going to have to develop technology where we go out into the range and we spin those barbed wire fences back onto spools, because that's not how we are making our living anymore. We can have some, but we don't need to carve up the entire West with barbed wire fences anymore. It changed the game, but it needs to change back too. We are all in this together, and that we have an up-leveling happening. And you know, I used to think that I had to keep my show really, really, really anchored in an updated sense of specifically where we are, and make sure that I stay down in the real zone. And I don't think I need to. I think that I can leave a trail of breadcrumbs back to the real zone, and then I can just go flying. I can talk about from a visionary standpoint where we're going, what the future holds for humanity. It's really good stuff. And when you get into vibrational knowing of this stuff, you get to a place where you don't need to hold back anymore. You're like, no, I know this is coming. It may not be this minute, and quite frankly, it may not even be my lifetime, because I'm a little bit old. Well, I'm proud of how old I am, actually, because I am a boomer, but I want to be an example to all of my fellow boomers as to how up to speed us old people really can be. You don't have to be a stick in the mud. You're so sure you're right and afraid for all the world, kind of a boomer. You can be full of energy and life and hope for tomorrow and um, enthusiasm for where we are going instead of being, you know, focusing on all the places that you could be focusing that could make you worried. Like, for instance, if you were really cognizant of what happened last century, what was that thing that happened during that world war? Or the two world wars is how it's traditionally viewed. I like to think of it as the World War, parts 1 and 2. And the only reason I like to say it that way is because I like to think that that's the only world war we're going to have. We're not going to have any more world wars. That's the only one. We only needed one. Thank you very much. Got it. Understand. We understand the problem, what the solution would have to be. We get it. We get it. What is the problem? Well, from a psychological standpoint, authoritarian psychosis really needs to be understood. Now, that's what Carl Jung called this phenomenon. He also called it autonomous complexes was a related phenomenon to this. It has to do with, it's like you're wired. You as your self, your vibrational self, are wired with all of the frequencies coming from source, a whole full electromagnetic spectrum holding every one of the frequencies of it's like you are a harp that with every one of the strands being a frequency that is you, and you plugged into source are getting, oh, I can see this. I've never done this analogy before, but I can see this. What happens sometimes is you get some of yourself gobbed up over in little autonomous places. It's not fully integrated with the wholeness of you. All of your strands aren't coming back to the center. You've got some of them that are off on their own, and they have their own thoughts, and their thoughts are not connected to the rest of you. And so whenever you hit that frequency, whenever you find yourself in that bandwidth of that autonomous complex, that one that is not connected to the rest of the group, all of a sudden you are off on your own. You're off on your own doing things that are not necessarily what the rest of the group of you wants to do. The group of you that is the one you that you are. I'm just talking about you as your individual self and all the group of you that are inside. The village that is you, inside of you. And so what am I saying? So you hit this frequency that's not attached to the rest of the group, and it goes off on its own, and it, keys your boyfriend's truck and carves your initials into. Actually, I'm not sure that this is a full It is an expression of this, though. That same thing. I'm always referring to Carrie Underwood's song, where she goes off on his car after he cheats on her, and it's supposed to be all virtuous and righteous because maybe next time he'll think before he cheats, before he hurts some other girl. I have done the world a favor. Well, I'll tell you what, though, you're going to go to jail for it, or you're going to be paying for it because you did carve your name into his. What I'm saying is under the influence of this emotion that's not connected to the rest of your thought processes, you might go off and do something that's going to get you in trouble. You are not fully, you are all of you inside of yourself are not fully unilaterally focused in the same direction. Some of you want to get revenge, and others in there want to love your family and love tiny creatures, and some parts of you in there. So how have you woven yourself together? Are you within your own self, are you all in this together? That's really the answer. Because if you aren't, you may have little pools of autonomous complexity out there that when you hit that frequency, now all of a sudden you are not a team player to even your own life. Now you're off just, scratching your anger or getting revenge or whatever it is that you're doing. And you wake up from that and you're back to your loving, soft self. And you're like, oh my gosh, what have I done? What have I done? I'm going to jail. Or whatever. What's the answer to this? This is what's going on both small in my individual self and collectively as we try to integrate who we are as a group also. We are all in this together, and we need to find our connection to our own source so that we can be trusted as we play together with the group. And I'm telling you, that election didn't change anything. It didn't change anything. It just means we're the ones who have to be nice now, who have to play nice. Because I'll tell you what, if we had won and he had lost, and he was claiming, a victory or whatever, we would be sitting there going, come on, people. You know what a glorious tradition that we have of peaceful power transfer. The fact is at some point, if we really want to get somewhere in this country, we're going to have to choose who we are, liberal or conservative. But it's not really that, because it's not liberal or conservative. We're going to have to see how we are liberal and conservative. And we need to pay homage to both of those aspects of ourselves. We need to probably change our political form of structure. Or, that sounds really drastic. We're going to just change. It's been kind of holding the order for the last 200 years and pulling us together in a common union of over 300 million people and doing a fairly good job of it up until this moment. But it isn't really reasonable that every 4 years we have these diametrically opposed philosophies that keep flipping. Okay, you're in charge. No, now you're in charge. No, now you're in charge. No, now you're in charge. I think we need to keep the... I don't think we should change the structure of... Now, so the Project 25 thing is so scary because it's a drastic and radical change that only one side is down with. And we really don't need to be doing either one of those things. What we need to do is we need to understand who we are first before we make any sudden moves like that. We need to come together in a better understanding of who we are and what source energy is and what our actual goals for the future might actually be. What might our future goals actually be? And I'm telling you, our big, big, big future goals, where we come together as America, for instance, because that's who I am. I am America. They shouldn't be things like, let's, in a really physically complex and intense way, let's work every one of our airports in every one of our cities, and let's redo every one of our bridges and all of our roads and and the reason that we shouldn't do that is because the way that we live our lives right now is not staying this way. I promise you, it's not staying this way. But there's a whole lot of things that are going to stay this way. This idea of us having a transportation system that can move both human beings and goods and services all around the planet. That's staying. The internet, which is like a nervous system for the for the nervous system for the body of humanity with a capital H, mankind with a capital M, the super being with a capital S, or however you want to characterize this humanity that we are. Our ability to move human beings and goods and services around the planet in some manner, this transportation system, that's staying in some form. But what are the vehicles that will move it around? That's going to change. It's going to change drastically, and it's not changing to a whole bunch of electric vehicles made over there by Tesla, making Elon Musk more and more and more powerful and rich. I mean, it is for a minute. It is for a minute, but that's not ultimately where the future of humanity is going. It's not going to electric vehicles. Do you know what? That whole time where we were without power for the last, 42 hours or 43 hours. If that had gone on any longer, and it easily could have, and in some places of the country it does, and depending on whether Washington loves us or not and wants to shower blessings on us, the thing is I don't want to be part of a resistance. I want to be part of a cooperative effort. But I want this cooperative effort to be in reality, in actual reality, where we really are and who we really are and what is actually possible and in front of us. And I want to love everybody. I want to love everybody. I want to love all the MAGAs, which some of them are my family members. Some of them are well, I didn't give birth to any of those, but I am blood related through my husband, whom I'm not blood related to, so don't worry about that, to people who are MAGA. And actually I have a sister who might have voted for Trump. I can't imagine her voting for, see, I did not thoroughly examine all the negative reasons why I wouldn't want to vote for Kamala Harris. I didn't do that because I didn't want to do that because I just thought, well, I don't want to vote in the authoritarian dictator, and I didn't want to. But things are always working out for us, so for whatever reason, that happened, and I'm not going to go negative this time. Last time when it happened, my fear made me go negative. And I pushed back quite a bit, and I learned all the time, all the details, the frightening details. What? The guy who ran Exxon is now our state, running the Department of State? Oh my gosh, the hair on fire. We should have loved him. We should have loved him, and through our love and him wanting to keep our love and us having some reasonable pathway to keep our love, he would have been more manageable. Now the only ones that want to have anything to do with him is the dark side, and so that's where he went. But you know what? The dark side is still us. And there is no us in them, and I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. And even though, the election did not go our way, and so from my point of view, I'm a little bit unnerved because I can see the vibrational spirit relationship between what happened last century with Hitler and what's happening right now. But I'm going to tell you right now, it's not the same thing. It can't be the same thing because we aren't the same people. We aren't in the same place. We aren't ignorant about the same things we were ignorant about them. We know a lot more about all kinds of things. Our attention is scattered in a billion different directions. We are not the same. And he is not Hitler. And the only reason we keep trying to act the same way that we did in reaction as though it is the same thing, it's PTSD, people. It's post-traumatic stress disorder. It is us as humanity reacting in PTSD when only some of the conditions are the same. But it ain't the same. And so to act as though it was the same is inappropriate, just the same way that when someone who has PTSD, maybe they suffered an enormously traumatic event. And maybe during the time that that event was going down, the color yellow was predominantly because of some reason or other, something that was in the immediate surroundings, bright yellow. So now every time you come into, and maybe some music was playing. Now, 30 years later, totally different time, totally different people, absolutely different circumstances, but you walk into a situation where there's lots of the color yellow and that music is playing and you are thrown right back into that same time when that horrible, horrible, horrible thing happened. Well, I'll tell you what, it's not the same. Although we need to be spiritually vigilant right now. It's more important than ever that you pay attention to how you feel and you stay on the positive side of the spectrum of all things while you live your life. And how can I look at things that are terrible and still stay positive? Well, know that your inner being is fine with it. Your inner being is fine with all things because your inner being knows that all things are fine. You are the quantum field itself. That's what you are. You are the formless. You aren't the form. You have come into the form. The form is like your coat, like something that you're wearing. You know, that link, and you are also not alone. There's something about the way we think as modern day Western civilization human beings that makes us think that we are alone. Our thinking cuts out. But you know what? You can meditate yourself. You can talk yourself into your neurons being placed in a way where you don't do that, where you live every day in absolute cognizant, conscious, intentional recognition of the wholeness that you're dancing with. We are one with the MAGA field, by the way. And you know, if you think about it, Make America Great Again doesn't sound all that bad. Now, if you immediately interpret it, you overlay it to, hey, wait a minute, that other guy had this campaign to make Germany great again. That sounds very much like it. So that means all the other stuff is going to be, you know, the same. Well, Hitler, if you listened to him, he also promised many, 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 many times to, he even said things about actually getting rid of the Jews, making them go away, extermination and things. He said things that people didn't pay attention to because they were trying to see the good side of him. Now, we need to go into all of this with our eyes fully open. We needed to love Hitler back from the ledge too, by the way. All of the world should have recognized what was happening, but we didn't because we had never been there before. We had no idea how big and impossibly horrible that could get. And the lesson from all of that is not look how horrible we are, because we aren't horrible. Even Hitler wasn't horrible, even though he was. Please do not interpret what I am saying. Hitler was horrible. I'm not saying he wasn't horrible, and yet he wasn't horrible. He needed to be. He was misaligned. He was completely ignorant. He was damaged and wounded from. So there's something that we don't understand about ourselves. We don't understand how sensitive, how fragile our psyches really are. How easy it is to damage the perfect positive lattice that could form within our consciousness, within our operating system, within our minds, our vibrational minds, what could develop. But what happens is we get scorched and burned and stung and bit and branded, and things happen to our psyche, and now we have scars on it, and it doesn't flow as pure as it would have had we been more careful with one another. Be more careful with the children. The answer is not to toughen everybody up and punish everybody into better behavior, and let's get tough on crime, and let's make sure that those bad players are, they get what's coming to them or whatever. That is not the answer, please. That is not the answer, and that is what the problem is. If we just elected the party that's what they think the answer is. Now that's the problem. And what's the answer here? The answer is the same, only now we just diffused it into a million jillion places, because it isn't just the guy at the top we've got to understand and be compassionate about, but we got to understand we are all in this together. And that includes the big, loud, obnoxious, we are all in this together. I really do need to go dry my hair. Was that what I was going to go do? Hold on one second. I'll be right back. The message is we're all in this together. We need to understand our vibrational self. We need to understand how manifested reality comes into being and how you get what you think about, whether you want it or not, and how you can learn how to think about what you want so that you get what you want instead of just getting what you're thinking about. Anyway, I'm going to be right back. We will start back. We might even start talking about unified physics when I get back. But I realize I got to do something really quick, so hold on. So, who am I? Actually, the question is now, where was I? Where was I? So what's the important part about all of this discussion? I think it's power. And actually, my power, it's really energy. Energy is the important part about that. And I was thinking about it quite a bit over the last 2 days when we had no power. And I'm thinking, you know what? It really is. It really does put us at... We wander through our electrified lives, imagining it's more solid than it is. But if we could plug into source energy, then can't you imagine how fabulous this will be? It means that in the middle of a freaking snowstorm, ice storm, blizzard, or whatever happens, the grid can't come down. You can't ever, ever, ever lose power when you are plugged into source, because source is everywhere and it never, ever, ever shuts down. So I think that would be cool, and we wouldn't have to have, but you know what? If you have a whole sector of the industry, well, how many people are employed over there at P&M and all of everybody in all of the energy sector? You might say, well, they're going to all get put out of business. Well, their business is going to get changed. Their business is going to be to plug people into source and keep them plugged in. And there's billions of people that are going to need to be plugged into source. And there's going to be devices. Either I have so much to say, so much to talk about what's possible. And let's get on with doing it. Let's get off of fossil fuels. And the answer is not to get onto electric vehicles. Musk, Elon. Over the last 2 days, when I didn't have power, I couldn't have charged up my damn electric car either. And when that electrical grid is mostly being fueled by fossil fuels anyway, Who cares if it's not gasoline that's running your car? It's still a fossil fuel that made that electricity and lost how much percentage of it between the So right here in this part of the show, I would say, so go watch the movie The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It. And I would put a link right there, and you could go watch it right there. I'm going to learn how to do this on Sunday. And come Monday, my whole show is going to be, it's going to get slicker. It's going to get more efficient. I'm still going to be here doing stream of consciousness as I'm pulling all of everything that I am together to try to understand this whole situation that we all find ourselves in. It's going to involve a whole bunch of stuff. I want you to know. I'm pulling from the things that moved me when I was in my 20s, throughout the 80s, as certain things changed. Multinational corporations, started taking over the planet. Big ag replaced family farms. A really terrible thing happened. This didn't just happen in the 80s, but I learned about the whole vivisection model standing as a legal barrier. The vivisection model being the legal hoops that you have to jump through in order to get your pharmaceutical to market without legal ramifications, without legal responsibility. If you did your due diligence and did all of these animal testing, then at the end of it, if you make it to the end, then you can start human clinical trials. And that whole model was put into place in the early part of the 20th century with the help of none other than John D. Rockefeller, which actually a whole lot of the structure of the physical structure of our systems go back to him, because he had a big vision, and he laid all of this groundwork and he was thought of as this marvelous philanthropist. All of these things he's doing just for the love of humanity, helping to set up the medical colleges and the pharmaceutical laboratories, and terrible, terrible thing. So I discovered this in the 80s, realized the rot at the center of our medical model. And if you look at all of who we are and what we've done, what we want, where we're going, and all that kind of stuff, think about this. So say if, for instance, tomorrow someone invented something that immediately made everybody's teeth strong and white, and nobody needed dentists anymore. They don't even need orthodontists anymore. It's that big of a miracle. It's just an imaginary miracle. Let's just imagine that, though. It's a thing. Now, somebody has to decide. Maybe it goes to the patent office. And the patent office says, we can't do this. We have millions of people in the dentist industry, not to mention the disruption that would happen in the college, the university aspect of this. And that would be just too disruptive. So for national security, we got to not do this. Or maybe, I'm not actually cynically, I'm saying that there's a real possibility that they might say that because of the disruptive factor of what that might do. But if we were flexible, if we were set up in a flexible way, where we knew who we were and we were engaged with one another, we were flexible with one another, we understood we were all in this together, well, something that's good for me is good for you, and vice versa, and blah, 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 all of that. If You put all the dentists and all of dentistry out of work in a heartbeat. If everyone had a universal basic income, then everyone would be caught in the safety net. It would be like, go ahead and put all the dentists out of business, because you know what? We can take that idea. Now we all have great white teeth. Now what's the next great idea that we can bring to humanity? What's the next great idea that we can all, if you start thinking collectively and in a positive way, like what would be cool? What would be fun? What do I want? What would be fun for me? What do I like? What do I want? You can't cut yourself out of this equation. So often when people go to thinking about, me as part of the great allness, you think of sacrificing yourself for the whole. And that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about being yourself for the whole, being your authentic, diverse self, because from connected source, your connected source diversity is blessed to the whole group. It is showing all of us who we are and what is possible, and the win-win position that the win-win paradigm we actually find ourselves in, or the potential one. It is potentially a win-win-win-win-win-win-win-win paradigm when all of us start seeing it that way. We need to soothe and love one another into better behavior, into more coherence, into more synchronicity and harmony and dancing joy. We don't need to be pushing against each other in blame and in fear, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So what if they had a 1, they would have been all blamey, blamey, blamey. We didn't win, and what we're doing is all fearful, 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 and we're acting in our fear, and we're acting in our fear, and we're acting in our fear. And I'm not to say that it's 100% wrong, because I went into political mode 8 years ago. But I don't like feeling bad. It doesn't sit well with me, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't keep making myself feel bad and scared and angry. Besides that, I was noticing something, and that is that the resistance to whatever I thought was the enemy for a minute energizes the enemy. Because he's not the enemy. The enemy is a field phenomenon going on that has to do with polarity. Polarity in the field. The polarity is the enemy, by the way, people. Not who you think is wearing the cloak of the polarized other. That's not actually your enemy. Not the true being within. And if you would only see the source being that he is. He really is. He is not out of source. And somewhere in there, he is not a bad guy. It has to be true. I don't know this to be true from I have actually been in contact with his with any kind of a nice self that's in there. I have never had any contact with him at all. But I know who we are. And I know that he must be too. And we must appeal to him from that side of him in order to tame him. In order to put the demon Xanth back under the magical land of Xanth, there's certain things that you have to do. You have to recognize. Now, actually, this is where the analogy comes apart, because this is not what they did to rechain the demon. But when you keep focusing on the dark side of something that you don't like, you keep focusing on that and you say, I know that's who you are. I can see all these other things you're doing, and they absolutely imply this dark thing, this dark thing, this dark thing. I'm staring right at it, and that's who you are. If you keep doing that, you bring the demon into the world. Even though you say, no, I didn't do it, I was just looking at what he was doing. Well, Everyone is responsible for their own point of attraction and their own point of attention and their own point of focus, because it is a PowerPoint. It is a PowerPoint. What you are focusing on and how you are focusing on it at any given moment is either bringing you closer to what you want or farther away from what you want. And how can you tell which one it is? It's very, very simple. Forget about what your thinking mind is thinking about what it is that you're imagining is real and imagining you're doing. The way you can tell whether you are in this moment now walking directly towards what you want, or whether you are on a bit of a detour walking now towards what you do not want, how can you tell? What state is your emotion in? Are you in positive or are you in negative? If you are in negative emotion, you are walking away from what you want. Well, how can I help it? I'm looking at something that I don't like. Well, I'll tell you how you can help it. Get bigger. Find a bigger frame. Expand your sense of who you are and what's happening around you. And find that place where you're like, oh, okay, I got it. At this level, at this point, this is where safety lies. And the safety is in this frequency where you get it high enough and you realize, okay, at this high frequency, I'm not alone anymore. I'm in here with all the rest of the world. All the cool kids at any given moment are here. All the cool dead ones are here all the time. This is who I really am, who you really are, who he really is, too, by the way. The project that is playing out in front of us is way bigger than you are imagining it to be. And the whole idea is we're not going to play this out different than we did last century. And this time, the enemy is Hitler. The enemy is not the Jews. The enemy is Hitler himself. And I'm telling you right now, Hitler wasn't the enemy then either. And had the German people turned and said, Hitler, you are the enemy, they would have been in a different kind of problem. That's not the answer. It would have just been a whole different hell. What is my main message? I have so many messages, and I'm starting to feel really excited about the idea of doing a marathon. And I think I'm going to do a seminar as a marathon. And I may plot out a total of X number of hours. And I will do the whole thing through. I'll have a couple of little breaks for me so that I can just, kind of get away for a minute and then jump back in and start to try to pull the whole picture together. I can't really do that until I may want to live stream that. And then as soon as I've done live streaming it, then I will podcast it and clip it and identify those things and put all those out there. So if you want to listen to more of this message, more of this understanding, practical understanding of who we are, how that fits with law of attraction, how that fits with human psychology and my understanding of human emotions, mine and everybody else's too, and how all of that is going to get us off fossil fuels and off the surface of the planet, through gravity control and out into outer space, intergalactic beings. How we understand who we are. What is our story? It is big. It is huge. It is amazing. It is old. It is connected to all of the universe. I think, our ancestors were they were outlaws of some sort, because I don't think they were supposed to genetically modify us. I think it was against the Prime Directive. You aren't supposed to do that. Everything is, if you give it enough time, it will evolve into an understanding of its connected wholeness with the rest of the group. It will. It may take a while. But in any case, so that's kind of fun. Isn't that sort of like pirates or whatever? They came to this planet and they illegally did this genetic modification to us. And what did it create? It created this magnificent cosmic instrument that plays to the universe. What am I talking about? I'm talking about our emotions, our emotional instrument, and how when you tune into what they really mean, and who you really are, and you get your brain thinking, get it used to thinking in terms of this, you can really get in touch with a cosmic hugeness of who you are, of who I am, of who we are. We are this thing. And Trump is too. And Kim Jong-un is too. And Putin is too. And all the terrible, terrible people. And you know, we need to understand this phenomenon of authoritarian psychosis and why we fall into it and what kind of benefit it has when we link to a sovereign, which you have to admit, through all of time, human beings have a tendency to do that, don't they? We give us enough time, we develop pharaohs and kings and Caesars, and you know, have we ever done anything different than that? Well, we could, but the only way we're going to do that is if we understand who we are, and we don't understand who we are, and that's why we just elected him. You know? But the answer is not to push back against him. The answer is not to increase the polarity in the field by increasing the resistance against who you've decided is the enemy, which they aren't. The answer is to understand that it is the polarity in the field, the us versus them paradigm, to begin with, that is the problem. There is no us and them. We are the only ones here, people. It is only human beings doing this. And all human beings have a tendency to be the same way. We have the same propensity to exhibit Wetiko disease, small and large. Small momentum, huge momentum. We all have it. What is this Wetiko disease? It's actually another word for misalignment, for not understanding your actual design and the design of the field around us. And I'm telling you, when we get to the place where we do understand who we are and the nature of this field, this matrix that we are embedded in, we will understand, it will come to us immediately, the possibilities of plugging our effing technology into it. It's everywhere. There is never any interruption in the flow of source, because source is all of it equally, the transferring all of its information up and down the planks, to the whole, down to the part, up to the whole, down to the part, every Planck instant, as this great wholeness is reverberating its vibrational information across the scales. And of course, at that level, there's no resistance. None whatsoever. There's no problem. And you at that level are afraid of nothing. And you will live forever. But what we've got going on right now on planet Earth is Project Humanity and Project Sustainability and Project Let's Understand Our Big Systems. Let's put them all together so that they work smoothly, so that we are all fed and joyful, and every one of our genius can be fed back into this amazing whole system that we are. Let's understand who we are. Anyway, I'm going to talk more and more and more. Tomorrow I will talk more. News for the future is the training session is happening tomorrow. So it's very possible that we are flipping the switch and going live Monday morning. I hope that is what's going to happen, because it's time. It is time. The time is now. And It is for us to do this. How do you do it? What are you doing? There's only one thing you're doing. Line up with your source. And then if you do nothing for the rest of your life but watch cat videos, because that's truly what you are inspired to do, that might be a good thing. Don't fight against that. Don't push your kid off of the cat videos too quick. He might be a Jeffrey Dahmer in the making. I'm not really saying that. I'm just saying be careful. If they truly are connected to source, and then if they seem to be stuck there, sort of gently help them away from that and on to something maybe bigger and better and fuller and lighter and more integrated with all of us and all of the whole. It's funny that I say we need to integrate because I am Queen Hermit. I don't go anywhere hardly, and I want to get really, really clear first before I start really connecting about what I want and who I am and exactly what I want. I don't want to fill my life with a bunch of stuff that I'm going to regret later because I want it to stay flexible. I do only what I am inspired to do from a positive perspective. And oftentimes that means I just keep my own company because I enjoy my own company. I enjoy thinking about things. I ponder and muse and reflect and envision. It's like my job. And then this is the way I connect back to the group. And if anyone, feels the impulse to hit this algorithm and pick up my show, there must have been a reason for that. A blessed reason for that. We are all in this together, and we need to learn to dance together, and we need to quit trying to force anybody or everybody or anybody into doing what they feel reluctant to do. Instead, help people find their clarity from their positive self and then let them contribute to the whole group. We are all in this together, and this is supposed to be fun, and we got a whole lot of work to do in the future, but it's going to be fun work. It's not going to even feel like work. We're going to be so inspired to do it as we shift over our energy systems and our transportation systems to what the new systems are going to be. There's going to be so much massive change coming up really quick that the only way that we can be secure is that if we commit to each other, to all of each other, to holding each other up as this change happens, because a lot of people's jobs are going to be made obsolete as we don't do things that way anymore. It's like 1905 and you're the king of the buggy whips. It's that kind of moment, but it's going to happen for so many industries, for everything from the way we make roads to the way we do healthcare, to the way we produce energy, to the way we produce food. Food is going to be one of the biggest ones. Everybody's going to need to start working in some aspect. Well, everybody doesn't have to do this, but a lot of people who don't find their natural niche will go out and do it in the age-old way of creating abundance through nature. That is a job field that is going to be a really big one in the future as we use all of our new technologies and the fact that we can plug into these technologies anywhere. So you take this bit of technology and you park it on the coast of Chile, somewhere, some rugged, ragged, dry, inhospitable coast of something somewhere where there's no water and nothing grows on the vegetation side of the land. There's the sea, but what you could do is you could park it right there somewhere and start making fresh water, build pipelines into the desert inland. We shouldn't be putting oil in our damn pipeline technology. We should be putting water in our pipeline technology. And we should be piping water all over the planet where desalinating it and piping it where it isn't. Fresh water and growing life, 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 life. We should be so busy producing more and more and more life everywhere on the planet that we don't have any time to fight with each other, to make war with each other, to have problems with each other. We're kind of imploding because we're focused in the wrong direction. I think that's happening because we don't know who we are. I think it is universally the problem. And I believe that all lessons, harsh or harsher, or any level of harsh that they are, and it doesn't matter, it can get all the way to just horrifically harsh, are all dedicated to the teaching of this one lesson. Who am I? What am I made of? How do I link to the rest of the field around me? Because I am not just myself, my objective from the outside, looking at myself as an object. That is not who I am. That is one aspect of who I am, and it actually gives me a certain amount of autonomy. It gives me, I have say over what this body does. But I don't have anything to say about what anybody else does. What I may have to say is I can help the beings around me understand who they are so that they can, in a positive and constructive way, link into who they are and find from where they are their win-win-win-win-win-win position. We could all get into a position where we are all madly winning. And there are so many freaking fabulous stores and services and beautiful gardens and theme parks and possibilities on a living, thriving, bounteous earth. That's our future. I know it is. But we got to quit pushing against the things we don't like and the things we don't want and just get on with what we do like and what we do want, what we know is possible. And so to that service do I dedicate and rededicate this show and my whole project, Who Am I, to that service so that humanity can know who we are, so that we can fully be who we fully are. Now, if you, looks like I'm getting ready to say amen and close the show, and I am. But I want to assure you, my idealism does not come from me not being aware of what's real. Truly what's real, and not even from a practical standpoint. I know how bad it gets. I am a freaking student of the Holocaust of all things, and that is the lesson for humanity. The big illustration for humanity, and he really needs to get this. We really need to get this. You know, that don't underestimate how dark that dark side gets when we do not align and when we push against each other in resistance and call each other enemy. That's how bad it gets. And that's what you need to tell yourself. This is how bad it gets when we call each other enemy. Don't say, this is how bad it gets when you let somebody as bad as Trump get elected. That only increases the polarity. And it will never let the other side, they will never admit any of his flaws if you don't ever admit any of his good things, his humanity. He is one of us. He is us. He is the ultimate illustration of where it goes wrong, actually, and how it can go wrong. Actually, Hitler is the ultimate illustration of that. But Hitler rode the dark side of us. And Trump did the same thing. He rode the dark side of us. He was an energy event. He was anger. He was outrage. He was, I don't want this to stay. Whatever happens, I do not want this to stay the way it is. They are so smug, thinking that we're the problem and that it just needs to stay the way it is. And I'm telling you, they're wrong. It was that kind of energy. And he is us. And it is only through tremendous schizophrenia that we have to come back and integrate all of ourself back into all of ourself. We are all in this together. Your neighbor is your unknown self made visible, and I don't care how problematic he is. He is still your unknown self made visible. And so the answer to all of this, we have to love each other back into our collective alignment. We have to understand that we are, in potential, a magnificent, powerful, latticed, connected creature here on planet Earth as humanity with a capital H. And the object of the exercise is, first of all, joyful sustainability. And not just for us, but all of the biofield on planet Earth. When it does well, we do well. When it does poorly, we do poorly. Across the board. And our wars are an expression of that. And a lot of our wars now have to do with squabbling over what we imagine as finite resources. And if you think of the fossil fuel fields as resources, yes, they are finite. But if you think of the future actually as us plugging into source energy instead of fossil fuels, then you understand how big our future really is. So, anyway, I'm going to leave you there. I know I didn't cover everything. Stay tuned for my notices about when the seminar is going to be. It won't be until I am dependably up and streaming. And I've got the new things I've got on my plate that I'm trying to chew. When those are pretty well masticated, then I will tell you when that seminar is going to be scheduled, and I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it for me, because how great is that going to be for me to hold on to these really big thoughts for 8, 10 hours straight, however long I can do it. It's going to be really good for me and my resolve and my knowing of this material that I believe is true in some areas, and in other areas the very act of speaking it over and over is causing me to know it to be true, which is funny because it's just my own little echo chamber that's doing it. But it's not, because what happens is that the neural pathways within my own brain, they get stronger and stronger. But what happens is that I feel resonance from the outside world pinging back to me in all the right places. It feels right. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not off the rails. Look at this teacher and this teacher and this teacher and this teacher and this huge school of teaching, and they're all pointing the same incredible direction. The same, the stuff I'm teaching, I'm not the first person to say it. I'm just the first person from my position to put everything that I know together from my position in my way. I'm the first person to have ever done that. And you can be the first person to do it from your standpoint. And I have found my voice, and I'm going to keep using it. I'll be back tomorrow, and the next day. Tomorrow is Sunday. It'll be training day later. Monday might be the first day I am live streaming in the time slot of the show. You're going to find me early in the morning here in Mountain Time, U.S. Mountain Time. It'll be somewhere in the 4:30 to 6:30 time slot. If I actually get a following, I will start following a time schedule. right now there's nobody that cares exactly when I'm going to be on. So, but when that happens, when people do care, I will let you know. And I will start trying to hit it at a particular time, maybe 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. It'll be really good for people on the East Coast, and then really good for people in Europe, because I'll be streaming sometime in the afternoon, and they can hear what it sounds like, what my form of resistance within the United States sounds like now that we have elected the authoritarian dictator wannabe. Anyway, he claims to be all for personal freedoms. The problem is that he is really, really good at claiming that he is for whatever group he is standing in front of. You know, he has a way of saying they hear selectively whatever they want to hear. So what he's actually going to do is kind of anybody's guess. He's going to feather his own nest, and he's going to line his own pocket, and he's going to build statues to himself and pat himself on the back and call himself a good boy and all of that. I believe that that is all coming from a sense of powerlessness. He does not understand how powerful alignment is. Alignment aligns you with the field of the universe in a way that makes you more powerful than millions of people who are not in alignment with this. And so if you are not in alignment, in order to have power, you need to have it's earthly power. It's a different kind of power. You need to control other people's activities. You need to control their actions. You need to make sure that, anyway, we have plenty to talk about in the days and weeks to come. And you can bet your sweet bippy that we will be talking about it. And so until then, go out there and do the best you can. Care how you feel. Try to align your thought processes with the thought processes of your greater mind. Your greater mind has thought processes, and her thought processes are very connected. They're magnanimous. They include others. When your thought processes can do the same thing, you'll have an easier time coming up with winning formulas that other people will assist you with. It makes only logical sense. So until tomorrow, God bless, and may the source be with you.